I mean, this is how humans learn. Kids would never have learned to crawl or walk if they didn't take a risk.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah, that's how they
all
fall.
of that is risk taking.
Yeah.
Like you learn to crawl, walk, jump, climb, all by taking a risk.
This is where I get frustrated.
Don't even open that can of worms.
Like horrifying.
Horrifying. Not allowed to cry or have emotions in your house.
Like, do you really need to know what Zemoglophicolate is? Or
Oh, Jessica.
everyone has a favorite. Everyone does. So my kids play, like, I feel like after school, Rhodes is like jumping off. He's like trying to do like these really big gross motor things and like kind of climb all over me and whatever. And it always, I'm like, why do you, like, shouldn't you be tired after school? Like, are you not getting like this gross motor exertion or risky challenges, play, whatever at school? And I started thinking about that. And you know, there's this idea of, or this whatever, like definition or thing, I don't know, of risky play. That's like a thing, or like a good thing.
Yep.
So Lauren, can you define that for us?
So risky play is any kind of play that involves some risk of physical injury. Okay. Usually takes place outdoors during free play time rather than during some kind of activity structured by adults.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell a little story to kind of lead into this.
Oh my God, do it.
Love a little story. Okay, so you know how we went to California over the summer. So my husband and I took our kids to California, Northern California. And one day we went to this playground in Berkeley. And we met a friend of ours who lives there. He lives like in the area. Okay. And this playground was awesome. It was like kind of in a wooded area. It had trails going into the woods, like up to this little waterfall, like kind of sketchy trails uphill. It had like tunnels. It had all these little bridges. And then it had this this slide, this metal slide that was like built into a rock wall. And it was like really, really tall and very steep. And it was sketchy as fuck. But like there were lines of kids, to get on this thing. Adults were doing it. And he said, he was like, you know, it's kind of sad. Like this used to be a really popular thing in playgrounds in California that like they were everywhere. And he said, this is one of the last ones left. That they've gotten rid of all of them because of lawsuits.
It's like the high dive.
High dive. Oh, yes, like the high dive.
Oh, yeah. I just made me think about, I don't even know if like pools have diving like, do pools have diving boards anymore?
You can't get diving boards at your house anymore, I think.
You can't?
No. Like you can't build a pool with a diving board now.
Because it's such a liability?
Yep.
Interesting.
So you can have, if you already have a diving board, I don't think you're forced to take it out, but you can't build one in. Like at a house. I'm not talking about like at a swimming pool. But yeah, so it was like, it was the most popular thing at the playground. And like some kids got hurt a little bit, but it was not, nothing was severe. Nobody broke arms or anything. You know?
Right. I mean, this is like growing up with a trampoline. Without, like, we didn't have no net around the trampoline.
Ain't no net around that thing.
Ain't no net, okay? And, like, I got double bounced, like, all the time. And
you get stuck in those little coils, and now the coils are all covered up.
Correct. And then you get, like, what's the trampoline made out of? Like it's
whatever that material is.
Whatever, but you would like get whatever burn.
Oh yeah, the burn.
And then like there was one summer that one of my parents and I we went to Idaho, Sun Valley, and we like did rafting, but like it gets so cold at night. And so like the ice skating rink was still like every night was open. And like I fell during the trip and like broke my wrist. And like still went rafting the next day with like a trash bag and like duct tape on it or whatever. And it like wasn't, no one's like freaking the fuck, like no one's freaking out. It's like, I feel like everyone like blows up about, we talked about this before, like if a 3-year-old like falls down and then we're like, oh my God, and like match their energy, then it's going to become a big deal. And so like that's another like adult transference of anxiety. Is that what it says? Is that what you pointed at the computer?
No, I just was making sure my computer didn't turn black.
Anyways, it's just all of these adult definitions, interpretations, anxieties, fears that are limiting kids to grow.
Right. And it's, I think when we were growing up, it was just, that was the expectation that like, it's going to be a little sketchy. You're probably going to get hurt. You're not going to die most likely, but like, you're going to get a little hurt, you know?
Like I never had a helmet. Never had a helmet on when I like rode bikes when I was a kid.
I know. Although I do support that.
I do too. I'll wear a helmet now. Yeah. But like, I don't know, like rollerblading, like we would just do stupid shit and like go down like, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and it's a necessary part of childhood, you know?
Yeah.
Like
That's what we mean by risk taking.
Yes.
Like, this is like a kind of an extreme example, but when I was like in 8th grade, 7th grade, middle school, I went with a family friend, like a friend, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Whatever.
A friend of the family.
Yep. Their family. Okay. We rafted down I told you this, down the Salmon River in Idaho. And it was like, you like camped every night and all of that stuff. And then they had these like 1-person kayaks. And I was like, yeah, I'm going in a kayak. Like, I want to try this. And like, that river wore you out. These were like, the rapids were like not like little, like you get stuck in a hole and like spit out and whatever. But like that adrenaline is like part of a kid. Yeah. And like there was like a bridge that we all jumped off of. And it's like, what is it called when you like accomplish something that's scary?
Conquering your fears?
Yeah, I guess. Like knowing that you're bigger than your fear.
Yeah.
And that it could actually be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, but keep going.
Yeah. So, risky play is super important. This is how kids learn what their limitations are physically. Okay. It's how they actually like, you can't learn how to not get hurt without messing up and getting hurt sometimes and taking risks, right? Yeah. Like that's how they learn like how to be cautious and like what they should or should not do. Versus if you never let a kid take a risk, then they have no idea what their physical limitations are. And then they're just in constant fear of everything.
I was about to say, like I go back to thinking of like when you accommodate, and this goes back, I think we use like the vacuum example or like the like a blender example. Yeah. Like when it's like an unexpected noise and their body may react, but their mind is going to react after their body. So their body's going to react, and then they're probably looking at you to see like, is it scary? Is it not scary? Right. And if you're like, if you see them look at you and then you automatically go and like rescue because you don't want them to be uncomfortable with a loud noise, then they're going to now think that, oh, okay, it is something to be scared of. Yeah. And like, I shouldn't take or I shouldn't just be like, oh, no big deal. Yep. Or like jump off, not that I'm saying jump off the couch, but like.
But they're going to do it anyway.
Like stupid wrestle, like push like I don't even, like when Rhodes pushes Monroe and she screams bloody murder, like he just like whatever. I'm like, Rhodes, don't push, but Monroe like stop with the theatrics. Like also you just like took his toy. Yeah. Yeah. You learn how to like interact with the world and those around you when you take risks. And like let those sometimes impulses like go.
And learn from the consequences.
Correct.
So when you like look at the history of playgrounds, it's actually really interesting to see what trends have happened over time. Because it's all in relation to risky play. Yeah. So playgrounds were like originally invented as a place for kids to go where they could challenge themselves and take risks in like a controlled environment. Okay. Instead of like doing it out on the street. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But then, obviously kids get hurt on playgrounds. Kids fall, they break their arms, whatever. And so then there was like this trend of, in the United States, like parents suing, right? Oh. Okay. The state. Yeah, or like whoever created the playground or, where the park where the playground is, whatever. And so playgrounds have become more and more like risk averse, like they've created playgrounds to eliminate all risk of physical injury. And now it's to the point where like you look at a playground, it looks nothing like a playground looked 30 years ago. And it's really like boring.
Yeah, my kids get bored.
They get really bored. So he was saying in there like how in Anxious Generation, like playgrounds are now basically designed for the risk level of like a 3 to 4 year old. And then once you get past that,
that's right.
like kids, like my kids are too old to go to playgrounds now. Like we might make it 10 minutes and then they're like, this is boring. And it is boring when you look at them. Like, there's zero for an 8-year-old to do here.
Oh yeah,
you know?
No.
And so now it's like they're so boring. We've eliminated so much risk that they did studies on like how many people actually go to playgrounds now, and the numbers are like declining rapidly.
Yeah.
And so then you think like, where are these kids going? Yeah. Right? Because they're going to look for risk somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. And like, why do you think like non-risky play is prioritized now?
So, it all goes back to parents' fear, adults' fear. Yeah. That's what it is. Adults are afraid of kids getting hurt.
But what changed? Like, why did we start like being so hyper vigilant about that?
So I think a lot of this goes back to parents being afraid of like what other adults could do to their kids. Part of it's like risk of physical injury, and then part of it's like what can a fear of like what can other adults do to their kids, like predators. Right? Okay. So so now, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was no big deal to let your kids go to a playground by themselves, go walk around the neighborhood by themselves, whatever, right? Yeah. And then there was like this growing fear that something bad will happen to your kid if they're out of your sight, right? And you're not supervising them. Yeah. And so this wasn't a trend just with playgrounds. Yeah. It was all around of like sheltering your kid, don't let them go anywhere, stranger danger, there's predators out there. Yeah. Right? So like kids are just using public spaces less. Playgrounds being one of them. All right. But then the other part is like the risk of physical injury, litigation, and so they make playgrounds just so fucking boring. There's no risk in them at all anymore. So it's kind of like a twofold thing.
I mean, so we kind of like lightly touched, but like kids are like eager and like need that adrenaline and risk and stuff. Yeah. Why?
I mean, this is how humans learn, kids would never have learned to crawl or walk if they didn't take a risk. It's
true.
Right? Yeah, all, that's how all of that is risk taking. Yeah. Like you learn to crawl, walk, jump, climb, all by taking a risk. Okay. Yeah. It's how we learn what our physical limitations are, right? And like what's dangerous and what's not dangerous, when we need to be cautious, when we don't need to be cautious. Okay. Part of it's definitely, the reward pathway in your brain. Like when you take a risk and you conquer it, I guess, like you get that dopamine rush. Yeah. Right. Right. And then it's like, let's say it's a kid who's riding their bike down a hill, right? Okay.
Like that
they do it one time and they didn't fall off or kill themselves. So they're like, ooh, okay, I'm going to go down a bigger hill the next time, right? So they like kind of like are always pushing that boundary. But yeah, I mean, this is how people learn. If we don't let kids have that opportunity, then they don't learn. Yeah. Period.
And I think as adults, like we think about risks as like big gross motor stuff. But like saying words is a risk. Yeah. Like learning how to talk is a risk. Yep. Like learning how to eat is a risk. Like everything we do, like every behavior, there's a risk. Right. And like and correct me with the medical jargon. When a risk is not really a risk, but a kid thinks it's a risk, then their parasympathetic nervous system.
Sympathetic.
See? Their sympathetic nervous system is going to act like there's a risk when there's not. Yeah. So that whole like fight, freeze, submit thing. Yep. Like they could react to like tripping, like tripping over themselves and like skin their knee. Their body could react as if they just saw a bear. Right. Because that's how they have that's how their brain and sympathetic nervous system has learned how to react to things that are like maybe hurt a little bit or uncomfortable. And so if we nurture that, then that is how they are going to respond to things that aren't that aren't threatening necessarily. Yep. And so then it becomes, well, how do you discriminate between a real threat risk or not a real threat risk? Exactly. And then it becomes really muddy, and then you have to like unlearn that. It's just a whole like damaging thing. Okay, so hazard versus risk.
Yeah. So this is something that he and I had never really thought about this, but he's like very careful to define in Anxious Generation. So a hazard is when there's like a known danger. Okay. So let's say at a playground, if there's a ladder and there's a rung that is like not fully bolted in. Yes. Okay. But it looks like it's bolted in. That's a hazard. Because if the kid goes up the ladder, the rung is gonna fall and they're gonna fall.
What's
off,
a rung?
Right? A rung on a ladder.
What?
A step.
There we go.
It's a rung. It's called a rung.
Rung?
A rung of a ladder.
What? Have y'all heard that before? Rung of a ladder?
The rungs of a ladder.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, a step. Let's call it a step. Okay.
Of a ladder.
Okay. So a hazard is when there is a known danger.
Yeah.
Right. A risk means it's unknown. Right. So there's a potential for danger. You're not purposely putting yourself in danger, in known danger, but there's an uncertainty about what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Like, I think of the city park playground. Like, so Rhodes is 4. And he is a risk taker. And that little, like, gymnast can, like, spider up, like, all of these things. And, like, sometimes I'm nowhere near him, but, like, I'll have, like, proximity. But and that stuff is, like, he wants to test it. Like, can I do it? Then there's, like, I don't know, part of the playground that's, like, has caution tape around it. And because the step is broken.
Right.
And so that would be a hazard. The risk is, like, let me see if I can do this, like, I don't know what it's called, ladder thing to get up to the big thing and whatever. So that's the difference.
Yeah. So I think we've, like, as adults, we have started to assume, like, if you look at a playground from the 80s and 90s, we've started to assume that that's hazardous, right?
Yeah.
Even when, no, it's risky. It's not hazardous. There's no known danger where your kid's not definitely going to fall and hurt themselves.
Yeah, correct.
Right? And so then we've, like, eliminated all the risk thinking that we're eliminating hazards when we're really not. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So discover mode and defend mode.
Okay. So this is kind of what you were alluding to.
Okay.
So basically, when kids play, they're in discover mode. All right. This is like their brain is in a mode, and this happens in animals too, like other mammals. All right. Their brain's like in this mode where they're learning, discovering, taking risks.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to be in that mode in order to learn.
Yeah.
Okay. If kids are very insulated all the time, okay, and adults are trying to protect them from everything and not take them let them take risks, their brain starts to go into defend mode. All right. So defend mode is like that fight or flight. Everything's a danger around me. All right.
I think
so we all
I just wanted to keep that in the
sand.
back. I'll just gotta write down. Keep going.
So we all, like, have the potential to be in discover mode sometimes and defend mode sometimes. And the key is, like, what is your default? Right?
Okay.
So if your default mode is discover, all right, then you're always open to new experiences. You're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to take risks. If your default is defend mode and you're always in fight or flight, you're never going to take risks, you're never going to learn.
Right.
So what he talks about, this is so interesting. He talks about animals, how there's certain animals, like a lion, okay, predators who are at the top of the food chain, live in discover mode. All right.
Yeah.
So if you go to the zoo, all right, and you see lions, they're all, like, relaxed, laying out in the sun, not a care in the world. All right. If you see a rabbit or a deer,
hypervigilant.
They are so skittish, and, like, any little sound in there just darting off, right? Because they have to live in defend mode because they're always being preyed upon, right? And so then you can translate that to people. So people can either be in discover mode or defend mode all the time. And if you overprotect kids, they become anxious. They live in defend mode.
Yeah. And other things can
cause that too.
Yeah.
Like trauma.
Yeah, correct. Like trauma. But the sand thing, okay. Like, my kid's first time in sand. Like, I feel like this is like a newer, maybe it's not new, but, like, kids who don't like the feeling of sand on their feet.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a bunch of shit. Like, that's like, no, they don't know what sand is. They don't. Yeah. And so when I hear parents say, oh, they don't like the sand, my kids don't like the sand. They don't like the sand because they had a reaction and then you rescued them.
You accommodated.
Because of the fucking sand.
Yep.
My kids touched the sand, Rhodes, and he was like, I don't like it. And I was like, it's okay. And like, he got off, got back in, got off, got back in. Now he loves sand.
Yep.
And it's like,
that's all it takes.
They don't know what a threat is.
No.
They don't know when they need to defend or when not to defend. It is our job to discriminate between that so that they learn.
Yep.
And so that when they grow older, they'll be able to do that themselves because of all the practice.
Exactly. And we need to know as adults, like, when it's okay to let them figure out on their own if something is dangerous or not, right?
Yes.
Like, we know sand is not going to hurt a kid.
No.
So that's a situation where you can just be like, I'm going to stand back.
Yeah.
And, like, let my kid figure out that sand's not actually going to hurt them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're going to be fine.
And they're going to be
fine. And then they get over it.
Yeah. Now, when he strips down naked and goes into, we were at my friend Addie's what's it called? Oh no, house. And when he starts like creeping into the water naked, like farther up, I'm like, nope, that's
different.
Yeah,
right?
That's different. I got to get you.
Known
like,
hazard.
Yeah, hazard.
Drowning is a known hazard.
Like drowning, like who the fuck knows what you're stepping on up in there?
Right, correct.
You know, like all that stuff. So yeah, so being able to whatever. What did you say? Like
discriminate. Yes. When are you protecting your kid from a real hazard?
Yes.
And when are you accommodating them so much that they're not going to take a risk, right?
Yeah. And is that because you don't, like, are you embarrassed because of their reaction? Are you actually nervous for them? Does their reaction trigger anxiety for you? Mm-hmm. Are you overstimulated when they get that loud? And so just then it's like, okay, if you're reacting to their reaction in such a fight or flight way, then you got to be like, hold up.
Yeah.
And be like, why am I responding to this uncomfortable noise reaction so vigorously?
Right.
And go discover it. Because then it's like, yeah. But all right. So what can like takeaways? I mean, I'm trying to think of playgrounds in the city that are like, I mean, city park's not terrible. Because they have that tree too that you can climb.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the best, but like it's not terrible. The one by Lakeshore. We went before.
Oh, Lakeshore Playground.
Yeah. That one's not bad.
No, it's not bad. Yeah. It's not bad. There is like this movement of making playgrounds like, okay, so there's this movement
Make playgrounds risky again?
Yes. Yeah. There's this movement of like people who design playgrounds, like that's their job to build risk risk back into playgrounds. And like they're saying like that's a necessary part of a playground.
You just build structures or something?
Yeah.
Like climbing walls. Like Rhodes loves a damn climbing wall, but they're too like he needs them to be higher or like more nodules.
Right. Yeah, the one that's like 1 foot tall and has like 4 little rocks on him is stupid. Who's going to climb that? Like maybe a 1-year-old or an 18-month-old.
Yeah.
Nobody past that.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a movement to like build risk back into playgrounds. Okay. There's also different types of playgrounds popping up. So have you heard of like junk playgrounds?
No, but I feel like
I mean, it's like literally a junkyard. Yeah. Like that's what it is. So there's one in New York. He has a picture in there of it. And it's basically just this like open area where people put certain like tires and like empty oil barrels and like bales of hay. And that's what it is. And like kids go in there and play. And he said it's like super popular. There are signs outside that are basically like, adults, please don't intervene. Don't. Like if you're going to bring your kid here, they're going to take risks. They might get hurt. Like please chill the fuck out, you know? There's like nature playgrounds where kind of like, okay, at Children's Museum, you know how the outside's like basically a nature playground where it's like
bored with that. Though.
I know.
It's fucking boring.
I know. But it's like incorporating like water, stone, wood, grass, you know, like nature elements.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. Mm-hmm. I think also in general, like what can parents do? What can schools do? Mm-hmm. Increasing like outdoor playtime is one of the best things you can do to allow your kids to safely, quote unquote, take risks, right?
And they need like equipment. Like some schools don't have like play equipment. Like in the ground. Like recess is like, here's some hula hoops, some balls, a football, soccer ball, and like that's recess. Yeah. And like that gets energy out, but it's not like actively like trying to, I don't know, challenge like a risky thing or whatever.
Yeah, they're not like building skills or like expanding upon skills.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we have forest schools. Fuck.
I think this is like so cool. Mm-hmm. So there's these schools that are, and this is, I mean, it sounds like this is mostly like preschool. Okay. This isn't really a thing for like older kids.
Where
some places are.
Are these forest schools?
This is like definitely a European thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's not even here. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think there might be some here, but it's more of a European concept. Where literally like kids just go out, like they bring a group of kids out into the forest and they're like, go. and then they go out in the forest and they do whatever the fuck they do in the forest.
They're supervised,
and then
I'm
there's
assuming.
No.
What do you mean?
No. Like the ones in like the kindergarten thing that we were talking about in Germany. No, it's like there is a teacher, there's an adult present, but they're not like watching the kids. They're not like following them around. I know.
How big is
it's
this
a lot
forest?
of, I don't know. There's a lot of trust in these kids. And then they
gonna
like
get Lyme
ring a
disease
bell.
up in that
They ring a
forest.
bell and everybody comes back in.
Like
the teacher like rings a bell for like lunch or whatever and everybody comes back in.
1, 2, count them off, and then what happens when number 12?
I don't know. It's a great
like on
question.
Highway 10.
They've been eaten by a wolf or something.
I mean, like I got lost in the woods once and ended up on the highway.
But yeah, this is the thing. Like it sounds like it's becoming more and more popular in Europe.
Rapey, I don't know.
Well,
it sounds a little like pedophile.
Don't send your kid to a forest school then.
I'm not. But I will send them to a sleepaway camp.
Yes. So I would say that's like our closest equivalent in the U.S. And those have become increasingly more popular.
I agree.
For sure. My kids
they
are going.
They were really popular when we were going up
They were very popular.
Then like not.
And now they're
back.
coming back.
Yeah.
They're like having a resurgence.
Yeah.
My boys are going to sleepaway camp in North Carolina for the first time this summer.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're going to be a new woman.
I am so excited.
How long are they going for?
It's a week. I know, but when they're little, like that's what you can get. But yeah, like so I was talking to one of my friends about this. It's kind of funny because this relates to the story. And she was like, aren't you scared? Like, you're gonna send them to camp and like think of all the things that we did at camp, like, because we were fucking wild. Like oh my God. Like the things that I did, I'm like shocked I'm alive,
Oh.
I mean, like climbing mountains that are fucking dangerous or like mountain biking. We went this mountain biking trip I went on. I mean, the trail was no more than like twice the width of the wheel.
Yeah.
Like sketchy as fuck.
Yeah.
And so she said that and I was like, I know, but that's the deal. Like that's what you sign up for. You have to know that like my kids are going to be taking a shit ton of risks. I am not going to be there to protect them. No. And I have to be okay with that.
And you have to trust like you got to trust other people.
Yeah.
Like they're not it's not a functioning establishment for no reason.
Correct.
And like other kids are going for a reason.
Yes.
And also they need to learn how to soothe like by themselves without you there. Like if you're having, I think it's like the best recipe if your kid is like a terrible sleeper or like crawls in the bed with you or whatever.
You just
like
cut that umbilical cord. Yeah,
just throw them in a sleepaway camp and they will come back and they ain't sleeping.
Yep.
All right. So play more outside, takeaway. Look into this, see, I guess, how you can get involved with restructuring the playgrounds to be more risky. If that's something in your community.
Mm-hmm.
Calm down. Parents, worry less.
Yeah.
Remember what it was like when you were a kid.
Yep.
And think about how that like formed your like worldview.
Yeah.
And also check yourself because if you're overreacting all the time and you're so anxious, then that's a you problem, not your kid.
That's a you problem,
and
not a kid problem.
Now transferring it onto your kid and you're going to turn that kid into an anxious generation.
Scared, shaky little wimp.
Yeah, correct. So
don't do that.
Buttercup.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Little Brain Campaign.
Please like, subscribe, and follow.
See you next time.